November 1st, 2021, Bargersville Stormwater Utility Board to order. First thing to do, join me in a salute to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call from my right.
John Bear.
Kent Gross. Meetings from our previous meeting. Back on the 27th. I have reviewed them, seen anything.
I thought everything looked good, so
Everything looked good.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 27th, 2021 meeting.
All right, I will second that. So I've got a motion and a second to approve the September 27th, 2021 meeting minutes. Any further discussion? Anybody else see anything that needs corrected on it? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 2-0. Next up, old business. And I think before we get started, I just wanted to thank Joe there for stepping up there and reorganizing everything so we could have our meeting tonight there.
Thank you.
Last week. Appreciate that. I know you had several announcements and stuff you had to reschedule for us.
Yeah, I think we got them all out. And
Get them all out.
the folks that needed to get notice got them. I think we're good to go.
All right, sounds good. Thanks again for that.
You're welcome. So first item of old business is STRM 341-2020. This is the Bantam football field. We did have the opportunity to meet with representatives out on site was it last week, Count?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They start to run together on you.
27.
But we did have some discussion out there. They are preparing a design and should be back at our regular November meeting with a proposal.
Sounds good.
Oh, next item of old business is DEV 319-2021, which is the Bargersville Church of Christ Development Plan. They're requesting a waiver of Chapter 1C1 of the drainage manual. At this point, we don't have any updated information from that petitioner. Staff's recommendation would be to just pull this from the agenda for the time being until the petitioner is ready to come back with that information.
Sounds good. I don't think we need to move that, or is that just a?
Wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, the agenda.
Wouldn't hurt to officially just take it off the agenda.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to remove item DEV-000319-2021 from the agenda until petitioner is ready with more information.
I will second that. Got a motion and a second to remove DEV 000319-2021 from our agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That motion passes 2-0. So we'll remove it from our docket until it comes back up again.
All right, next item is plat 317-2021, Walnut Commons primary plat. Petitioner Lennar Homes of Indiana is requesting drainage approval to develop a 94-lot residential subdivision. Subject property is located due north of 3481 North 450 West. We received our staff report summary. Plan Commission did approve this contingent upon drainage approval at their last regular meeting. Staff is recommending the board approve the drainage contingent upon any additional comments, any additional TAC comments at detailed review.
Okay. So this has been through TAC review once, right?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Yes, for the preliminary plan,
Okay.
preliminary plat. Roy, you did the review on this one, right?
Is Wessler on the drainage?
Wessler did the drainage?
On the street side.
So there was a mistake in the staff report. Whistler did do the drainage on this one. We'll throw
I think you had it right.
Mary right under the bus. Walnut Commons,
Yes,
I didn't see any outstanding drainage questions on that one.
no, just some of the regular questions that will be addressed further on in development, so. Mhm. I'll just
Um,
leave my-
Petitioners are here, and this is a public hearing.
Let me see if Addie, can you just pull this plat up quick, and or if you pull it up there, just so everybody can see it there, so they know what we're talking about. Before I open it up for comments. Let's get getting closer.
Getting warmed up. So no major concerns with the preliminary review.
This location is on 450, just south of Warner Grove Elementary School, across the road from it there.
Yes,
So it looks like this entrance will be the same entrance that comes in off the school then, right? Is that what-
correct. Yeah, the new, the revised plan shows the entrance laying up at the school.
So Mary, will most of this drain underneath the road? Is that where most of this is gonna drain? Do you think that's what it's?
I
plan
believe
is
the
for that?
outlets are to the east, yes. So is
Oh,
there
they're gonna come back
drainage?
across, they're gonna.
Is there a drainage plan on this one, or this is just the plat?
This is just the plat.
Okay,
Okay.
I think the comment is basically saying,
yes. Those, the large common areas are gonna be the detention ponds.
Okay. So where do you think, so is that gonna drain back to east then, is it? Back onto this property here that we've already got?
Yes,
South Club
South
South.
Club
Section
South,
4,
four,
which is
okay.
what and the road connection connects into.
South Club South, right there.
yeah,
There you go.
Aha. There's a detention pond.
Yeah. It's on separate pages, that's why. So it's the north.
Looks like one to the north, one to the east.
Yeah, on the east side right there.
Yeah, so at this point, we just look to see that they're planning to do detention and if they thought it out and have an adequate outlet and, that they're platted kind of in common space, easement areas, those sorts of things. So obviously, there wasn't a whole lot of design at this phase.
Yes.
There'll be more design as we move closer to the development plan, so.
So as long as South Club South can handle the water off of this. So have to flow into their
TBD,
detention,
right?
they'll have to flow into their detention, they'll have to flow into their detention ponds.
Yes, and I think that was part of the plan was that they were looking at the adjacent property and the drainage plans from that development.
That'd be something to think about if we're gonna do this. Alrighty, any other questions from us there? I will open this up for public comment. Anybody want to comment on this from a public standpoint? Seeing none, I will close public comment. All right. What do you think they're gonna do, man?
Ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion. If you're ready to give me a motion.
I move that we approve the preliminary drainage design with the condition that final design receive review and approval. That's what the secondary plat, is that when they submit the final?
I would just say, in accordance with the town's drainage standards manual. Right.
In accordance with the town's drainage standard manual, or drainage manual standards.
Okay, I've got a motion and I will second that. So I've got a motion and a second there to approve plat 000317-2021, which is the Walnut Commons primary plat based upon it meeting the Bargersville stormwater drainage manual conditions. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 2-0. Any other old business there?
No additional old business.
All right. New business items.
First item of new business is plat 333-2021, which is the Crump primary plat. Petitioner Tim Crump is requesting drainage approval to develop a one-lot residential subdivision located at approximately 6671 Travis Road. This is zoned rural residential. Again, the Planning Commission did approve this primary plat at their last regular meeting. Petitioners requesting it's a one-lot, 4-acre subdivision.
Okay.
This is a public hearing.
You wouldn't mind. This guy's up already, beat me to it. Beat me to it. So this is being cleaved off another existing parcel, right?
Correct. I think it's, just going to test my memory. 38, 36, 38 acres total. It's one lot and a remainder.
Any issues?
No, similarly to what Mary said previously, we had the, those primary plots, preliminary drainage calculations, and we reviewed those in general, and we'll look to see what they come back with. And with a smaller development like this, it is somewhat simplistic, but they wouldn't put the detail at this point that's necessary for final approval either, so.
Sure.
But as long as they follow our standards and respond appropriately to the tech comments, they shouldn't have to come back for a waiver, but, that would be the second contingency, would be if it's a necessary waiver, then come back before the board on any of these projects.
Correct.
Any other questions there, John? All right.
Yeah.
I will open
I got
this
a
up.
question.
I will open this up for public comment.
Okay,
Okay?
that right
If you don't mind, just come up there and identify yourself there if you could, please.
there to that side. I have no problem with them doing that there. It joins my property,
Okay.
but I want the water to drain towards Travis Road. And that back part there, that remainder 30-some acres, there's busted field tiles and stuff in there that's run over my property, needs to be repaired, or retention ponds put in there to keep that water from flooding out on my property. Because I just repaired my field tiles. And that water that went around there, that was my father's farm years ago. That water that went around there went to the east of Travis Road and went in right there where Connie Jess Surface property is. Drained out in that ditch over on Bill Plummer. But you can't see that on there, but it used to. I just don't want a bunch of water draining back over and coming up out of the field tiles because it boils up out of there. And the water where they're doing that can all be drained towards Travis. It's all low there and there's a creek there. That's it.
Thank you.
My name's Andrew Barcosin with Mauer Surveying. We're doing the subdivision here. He's correct. It does flow, as he states before, but that right now is going to remain a farm field. It's going to remain, it's 30 some odd acres left over. So nothing's supposed to change as for now. As for the field tile status, it's still in corn right now, so I can't really go out there and really look at anything. But it does go east and then started going down south to where his property is. But the house that we're proposing is just going to be on that 4-acre
Right,
piece, and that all flows to the ditch.
to Travis.
Right. Which has, no effect really on it. I can mention to the owner about the broken field tiles.
I've showed them,
Have you?
yeah.
And I mean, I can't really.
They don't
Too
want
much
this
more
one, that's
of
up to
that.
them.
Yeah.
They ain't gonna run over on me.
But we're not planning on doing anything with the big pieces, just for the petitioner to create this 4-acre piece to put a house on it. So.
I'm good with the house being there. I have no problem with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Helps to see the contours.
So I'm assuming that water off of this course right here looks like it's gonna drain right up the frontage here, right?
Yeah, there's a
Does it come underneath the road right there somewhere, does it?
Yeah,
Over
yeah,
the ditch?
correct.
Okay. We ever have any trouble with it backing up down through there? Seems to flow okay, run off all right?
Yeah. Brought to my attention.
If I could, if there's no more public comment.
Yep.
Yeah. Close the public hearing.
Okay.
Procedural.
Procedural? I didn't know we were still over here. Any other comments? All right, we will go ahead and close public hearing. There. I'm ready for a motion.
I will move to approve the preliminary drainage design contingent upon final review and approval in accordance with town's drainage manual standard.
All right, I will second that. So I've got a motion and a second to approve plat 000-333-2021, which is the Crump subdivision. Any further discussion? Good to go. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 2-0.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Next up.
These guys are getting their workout in today.
It's a busy one.
Excuse me. Next item of new business is plat 334-2021, which is the Commerce Grove primary plat. Petitioner Crossroad Engineers requesting drainage approval to develop a multifamily and two-family residential and commercial outlots located at the northwest corner of 2 Cent Road and State Road 135. This is currently zoned C4 commercial. The Planning Commission did review and approve the primary plat at their last regular meeting. I believe we have petitioners here to address any questions or if they want to give an overview.
Yeah.
Exhibits for you.
All right.
My name is Charlie Maddox with Crossroad Engineers, requesting drainage approval for the Commerce Grove subdivision. The project's located, if you take a look at the first sheet, it's located at the northwest corner of 2 Cent Road and 135. It's roughly 47 acres of cultivated field. If you want to flip to the second sheet for the existing conditions, 47 acres, completely cultivated field. There's one on-site basin that makes up the property. It all sheet flows to the west, to the western property line, where it eventually continues west onto the farm field west of the site. From there, it continues west until it reaches a paved concrete channel and then to a box culvert underneath Baldwin Street. There are 4 off-site basins that contribute runoff to the site, roughly 40 acres northeast, a smaller 3-acre section to the east, another 28 acres to the southeast, and then the due south, there's the Fisher Park Industrial Complex. And that basin is currently being detained. The detention pond, you can see there west of those storage units. We have predetermined release rates for those. Those are listed on that sheet as well. All the offsite drainage is going to have to be incorporated into our proposed plan as it goes through our site, and I'll get to where it goes. If you want to flip the page to your post-developed conditions exhibit, proposing 100 duplex units and about 4.5 acres on the northeast section to be a commercial block, and then about 8.5 acres of the southeast section that's going to be an apartment complex. Overall curve number 93, 1 pond to serve the entire site, as well as the offsite drainage. All the drainage will be routed to the west. You can see at the very southwest area, that's the Bargersville Street Department site. There were two 30-inch pipes installed along the north property line of that development, stubbed to our property line with the intent to serve this development in the future. So the detention release rates will be detained such that limited by the capacity of those two 30-inch pipes. With detention being implemented on the site, it's going to greatly improve the downstream issues that the town and many homeowners have been experiencing to the west for some time. With that said, I'll be happy to answer any questions or address any comments.
Do you have any major issues coming through TAP review there?
No, actually, Crossroads, going with IXY engineering, and this has been a long duration and development of this parcel. Crossroads had previously looked at it, if you remember, the MVP sports complex site. So quite some time ago, they did initial analysis. We had worked with them quite extensively while we were looking at the street department site, as well as all the downstream restrictions that we have. And so not only this property, but the property to the west, the Madison property, both have been looked at with development. And so Charlie put it very well. They're over detaining and they are working with the restriction. So they are having to go above and beyond our standards in order to meet the restrictions downstream, which is necessary.
So everything's gonna flow through those two 30-inch pipes, right?
That's their preliminary analysis, obviously, is not completely detailed, but I would say it had to be, with all the work that has been done in the past, ended up being more detailed than we would normally probably see at this stage. But it is satisfactory at this level, and we see a great improvement happening for the area because of this development.
So just a quick question for me. So we've got a 24-inch culvert coming underneath 2 Cent Road right there off the industrial complex there.
Yeah.
How's that water flow across here? I'm assuming it's going to get into your detention pond.
Yes,
You're going to bring it down along, so they're not going to take it underneath these lots and stuff here, I'm assuming.
that's
Not gonna go
correct.
Underground to that, so.
It's going to either probably going to have to be piped, but obviously, again, we're still looking into that. It's
Okay.
going to be quite detailed when it gets to the MFPGs for those lots adjacent to the local road section going north there.
Yes. So have we ever overflowed water there at 2 Cent Road? Because of storm backups?
I think it has. We've had some pretty heavy storms that have done a number of different things. And we've seen overtopping on 135.
Yep.
And that's part of this issue. Some of the discussions that we did have with Crossroads is modeling this correctly for the current conditions. The pipe that you're mentioning does come from the storage areas that is already detained, and so there's basically a calculated known quantity that's coming at them for that fourth offsite area, if you will. So they're going to have some details to get into to make these areas work, but at least their initial analysis is showing them that it's going to work. So.
So I know we got water coming from that detention pond there at the site. It also flows east or west. Along
The
2 Cent
ditch
Road there
there
too,
along
so.
from 135 over has
Yep.
been problematic. The town's had to deal with some issues that it's so flat and then running real well as well, and there are pipes coming under 135.
As well too. All right.
Good luck.
It's a good one.
It'll be a good one then.
Extra analysis.
Yeah, all right.
Right.
Okay, any other questions there? I will open this up for public comment. Any comments from the public there?
I have a question, Darlene Martin.
You want to just go ahead and come up there if you could.
This is the first I've seen this. Okay, I own property on the east side and on the west side of the development. There's, as you stated, culverts that go underneath 135 up in the north corner. Is that water all going to be diverted into the pond?
You're saying this is.
Yes, there's a-
Going across.
There's several culverts.
Right, there's three that actually cross underneath 135.
I'm just asking
And they'll have to.
how my field tile's gonna get across 135 and into that pond.
There's one
There's one right,
here,
Yeah.
there's one, no, there's one at 260.
Right there.
So it'll all be modeled for.
The culverts themselves will be, that was part of our discussion of modeling those culverts to handle that flow coming onto them. And if it overtops, then they're modeling it overtopping the road. So do you actually have field tiles themselves that
yeah,
are?
we just purchased this probably 8 years ago and put in a lot of field tiles to drain
Mhm.
the east side of 135.
Okay.
And that there, my husband had talked to Greg Costello, and, you know, all that field tile to the north goes into that little ditch there with the trees.
So,
That doesn't drain much anywhere.
yeah, but are they underground tiles that continue on
Field
this
tiles.
property? Or do they daylight?
I'm not sure,
Okay,
but we put in field tile,
okay.
farm field tile.
Do you have documentation of those tiles?
I doubt it. I don't know for sure.
Is it your husband?
Yeah.
Would he know where they're at?
He passed away, so.
Yeah,
And then concerning on the west side of Baldwin Street to the ditch is my property too. And Bargersville's supposed to maintain that waterway through there, 50 north. And I'm getting blown away because everything comes south and west through the creek and down the road. The neighbors and stuff, they've not maintained that creek, so a lot of it is plugged up and floods, which is probably a county problem, not Bargersville, but we got a lot of water going through there right now.
is the ditch, so this is pre-you, this is back when I was on the board. And that was the area from the railroad to
Yes.
the west, the 2% road is the diagonal piece, and that was an acquisition that was made with
Back in
Martin
2006.
Yeah, and so there is an open ditch that runs from the railroad there, and there's also a tile that runs in the bank adjacent to that. But that, so far as the ditch goes, you're not having an issue with the ditch that the town.
Yeah, I am. It stated that they were supposed to maintain that. Every year it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. It used to be to where I could mow all the way up to the concrete, where the concrete started. And, every year it gets farther and farther and deeper. And then there's water going underneath the concrete.
At 2% road?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, 250 north.
That's right. 2 cents anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be something that we can, this board, it's good
Yeah,
that
we
you
need to
mentioned
address
that. So that we can look at that. Once it gets to the county road, it does become the county's responsibility. But the area that the town has jurisdiction over would be the board's responsibility to maintain and look
Yeah.
into that.
I talked to Brian a couple times
Yeah.
about looking at it,
Okay.
and he just said that you guys didn't have any money to fix it or anything like that.
Well, he does have a lot on his plate, but
Yeah.
we can certainly take a look at that.
Okay.
This development should, though, help. That's the purpose of the detention, the pond that you see on here.
Well, most of
The
the,
western side should be greatly improved by what's going on here. So
Right. Thank you.
that's the goal, certainly. Thank you.
So if you don't mind, could you just pull up Google Maps for a second, just so I can have her show me her property here to the west? Just so I understand where it's at. So I know where it comes out underneath the railroad tracks and it goes across the field diagonal right there, and then underneath 250 north, and one down and around.
Yeah, on the staff report,
You can barely see it.
actually, I think it's the start of Stops Creek.
Yeah. So there. It's not really clear. Joe's getting there, but you can see the railroad. And that is actually the swell of the town.
Yes,
Has an easement over.
I know her, so is her property?
Yes, that's her property.
Okay.
And then this is the other portion that she was
Yes.
speaking to as well. Yep. So in that, we have an easement over that area.
I noticed there's a little grass down through here, does it just keep it growing out, does it?
Well, in particular, I think we look at what's happening down.
Right here underneath the road?
Right.
Okay.
We might be having to get with the county highway on it too.
There you go. So you're talking this right here then? This
Well, and
goes
then on
underneath-
the
that goes underneath the road as well? You're saying this is the piece right here underneath the road where it's going under the concrete? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
It's, right there by the culvert, but then that creek goes all the way through me and through the housing addition,
Correct.
clear down to 400.
Yeah, it comes all the way down to here and then down to here.
Once it gets to the road, that's where the town's jurisdiction ends.
Yep.
And certainly probably do have more issues south of the road as well that are challenging.
Yeah, we cleaned it out summer of 2020 and it's just eroding so bad. Because the water comes in there so fast.
Now, which part are you saying is eroding? This part here or the part
Right at the road,
right at the road?
around the culvert, around the road, and then,
It's not a very good situation, particularly right there. There's several culverts coming in. It is a area that's susceptible. And we would just need to look at it carefully and see.
Existing condition, staff's gonna log that in as a stormwater request.
That'd be
And
great.
we'll coordinate with town staff and the county to see what we can do down there.
That's beyond the scope of what's.
It is beyond the scope.
Or just-
Yeah.
In that case, if a fix requires action of the board, we'll bring that back as a proposal.
So we're hoping the development here and here slows down the water coming through here.
Absolutely, that's the
So we're
purpose for our ordinance.
So-
Yes.
All right, so we'll make a note of that issue there. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Any other comments? All right, go ahead and close public comment. Did I close it already or not?
Yeah.
All right, we'll close it then. Close it is. Any other concerns, anything else?
Make a motion to approve the preliminary drainage design for plat 000-341-2021, contingent upon final review and approval in accordance with the town's drainage standards.
What was your number again? Sawyer, you're on the next one, I think. Are you on the next one? There's the correction between Commerce Road there.
It's not the one I just did. All right.
Yep, I think you had that. I think you had Sawyer's.
Okay, I'll amend my motion for plat 0003334-2021.
Okay. All right. I will second that motion there. So we got a motion and a second there to approve plat 0003334-2021, which is the Commerce Road primary plat, based on those conditions. Any other discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 2-0. All right. All right. Next item.
Next item of new business is plat 341-2021, Sawyer Walk, Section 1. Petitioner M.I. Homes of Indiana is requesting a waiver, Chapter 1, C1 of the Town of Bargersville Drainage Manual, which is the design of detention/retention facilities to exceed peak discharge rates in the 10-year storm event. Westler Engineering did the review on this. I'm sure Mary can shed a whole lot more light on the request than I can.
So, yes, we've been kind of going back and forth with Crossroads on this and requesting additional information. And is someone here from, oh yeah. They could probably give the details of the design, but basically they needed a waiver from the detention requirements kind of for the phase 1. There's some depressional storage that is not releasing right now. And so to reduce the rate, they had to encompass the full development area, and they've brought a detention swale down from the Section 1 down to the release and have encompassed that entire area and are pretty close to the release rate, but not exactly where they need to be. So we've kind of gone back and forth, and they've made basically as many adjustments as we feel like they could make. We also asked them to look at downstream restrictions. So this is the swale that runs down past the wastewater treatment plant that there's erosion and issues with, that the town has had to replace culverts along that ditch. And so we asked them to look at the capacity of the downstream culverts, and that they were able to demonstrate that the culverts have capacity. So that's kind of where we are at this point. And if you want to give a little more information about the design, just so that you have it.
Hi, so, my name is Derek Snyder. I'm with Crossford Engineers, 115 North 17th Avenue, Beech Grove, Indiana. As Joe and Mary had mentioned, we're here on behalf of MI Homes to request a waiver, a temporary waiver, I will say, from the allowable release rate requirements, as well as open channel geometry. Section 1, I'll take a step back. You're familiar with Sawyer Walk. Obviously, we came to the board a couple months ago to get primary plat approval. At primary plat stage, obviously, we're analyzing the entire property and all the ponds that will be built upon full completion of the development. As we started to break this out into sections, we started to analyze, okay, here's where we want Section 1 to be. Topographically speaking, Section 1 of Sawyer Walk is really kind of confined to that northeast corner, right? Access off of 144 will be in the northeast corner. We're connecting to sewers that are that have been installed in Saddle Club South for sanitary connections. Domestic water service will be taken from a 12-inch main along County Road 144. So it really only made sense that Section 1 would be in that northeast corner. As Mary indicated, unfortunately, that northeast corner of the property is basically just a hole. There's about a 2-foot depressional storage that really prevents any water from that portion of the development from draining south in anything less than a 100-year storm event. So essentially, as I said, when we look at it at primary plat stage, you're looking at everything. When we broke it out into sections, now we have a depressional storage that basically has no allowable release rate if you're calculating it in accordance with the ordinance. So as we've started to analyze this, we've looked at everything that drains to the south towards that treatment plant ditch. That includes some offsite that will be developed in the future. So in doing that, in our coordination with Wessler, we kind of identified that we would, essentially we're over detaining Section 1 as much as possible while still constructing a positive outlet that's not there in the existing condition. So to get the pond to drain from Section 1, we have to construct a temporary ditch through the future section. MI has obtained a 30-foot easement to construct that ditch. It's my understanding that the Sawyer Family Trust intends to farm that until such time as it is purchased and as they continue with each section of the development. That's kind of resulted in a 30-foot ditch, something that's maintainable and doesn't, take up a large chunk of the farm ground that they intend to continue to cultivate over the next couple years, as we progress through building these other sections. So in our conversations with Mary, we had determined that, in an attempt to try to further reduce that rate at the south property line, we would essentially construct a temporary ditch detention system in that 30-foot easement and install the culverts for the future pond to act as the restriction point. And as indicated in the calculations that we submitted recently, we're able to meet the 100-year allowable release rate requirements. In the 10-year scenario, I think we're over by 6 or 7%. One of the items that was mentioned during TAC review was the downstream capacity. We actually coordinated with Robert Capeau, the sanitation department superintendent, and he had indicated that the town actually purchased replacement culverts for that crossing in question. The work just hasn't been completed yet. So we analyzed that crossing with the new pipes, and with those new pipes, we're able to determine that it would have the necessary capacity to convey the runoff once Section 1 is developed and that temporary ditch is constructed. There was also some erosion identified in that channel approximately 150 feet south of where the Sawyer development will outlet. And we analyzed that, and it appears that, a slight regrading of that bank and either some riprap or a turf mat would probably address the issue of the erosion. So with that said, I think hopefully we've addressed the town's concerns with the downstream capacity. And I just wanted to note that, obviously as part of the primary plat process, we presented the primary plat for the overall development, as I said, which showed actually 4 detention ponds, 2 of which will drain south into the treatment plant ditch. So at, full build out, MI is committed to, detaining in accordance with the ordinance. And actually they would, I think per our primary plat calcs, we would be over detaining for that section. So this would be a temporary waiver really until that what I believe will be Section 3 is constructed. And in the letter, we kind of provided some, rough timelines, comparing to Saddle Club, and how long it would probably take or could take for that section to enter into construction. So this would not be a waiver that we would expect to be in place for 10 years. Obviously, MI wants to develop the property and sell homes, so their goal is to develop this thing and do so in a timely fashion, which would make this a temporary waiver that will eventually, upon full completion, essentially go away in accordance with the primary plat calc. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Since the original waiver was requested, they had originally just showed detention and the release rates were higher. But now we asked them to, do something different, that we could not accept, something that was not going to meet the standards, just because we know there's downstream capacity issues. So they did then designed the detention within the ditch and looked at the downstream capacity. So they have made adjustments since the original waiver request in attempting to reach the town's drainage release rate. One thing is that if the board so chose to do this, would be to ask for some stabilization of that downstream where the erosion's taking place, and the riprap or turf reinforcement mat is something that could alleviate that issue, that we don't want to have that continue. So that might be a condition of approval if we so choose to do that. So.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, so the modifications we made were to kind of analyze that temporary ditch as a storage system of sorts. And in addition to the temporary waiver from release rates, we would also need a temporary waiver to construct that ditch. Just topographically speaking, we don't have the necessary fall from our pond to the detention or to the ditch through the treatment plant. So we're not meeting the geometric standards for an open ditch. We're flatter than the allowable, and we're using side slopes that are 2.5 to 1 instead of the 3 to 1 maximum to try to really maximize the volume of that ditch within the 30-foot easement that MI has obtained to really try to drop that release rate down and get it as close as possible to the allowables for the ordinance.
In the worst case scenario, if section 1 gets done and then something happens and we're not able to complete the other sections, are there any concerns with this becoming then a permanent condition?
Well, we would plan that it might remain permanent, right? So the whole area would need to remain within an easement and be maintained like a detention pond, right? Operation and maintenance, all those kinds of things that we would move forward as if the other sections were not going to develop, and make sure that they are meeting all the requirements in this condition, so.
So how much drop do we have from the outlet? The detention pond will be here down to, you're gonna take this out, right? So right now this is.
Correct.
Culvert, except down through, this taken out there basically.
Right.
It'll become part of your spillway basically.
Yeah, our outlet ditch, yeah.
How much drop?
It's about 3.5 feet, a little under 3.5 feet.
3.5 feet.
Yeah, but we've got, a quarter mile to go to get from that pond. And eventually that, which on the, I think it's Exhibit 3 is the post-developed watershed map that was stapled to the letter there. Yeah, Exhibit 3 is the post-developed map. So eventually that ditch will go away and we'll pipe with storm system from Section 1 pond to what's likely to be the Section 3 pond. And then that will all outlet south. But topographically, because of we have we have to get the rear yards of I think it's lots 1 through 18, which are on the far north end of Section 1, and we have that very large common area. All of that we've got to get it drained and into the pond, and then get pond outletted quarter mile south. It's really kind of forced our hand. A topographical constraint has really made it difficult to meet minimum slope requirements for that ditch.
Kent, if I could ask a couple of questions as a concerned resident. As I know it's not a public hearing,
It's
but you're asking for a waiver.
the president's discretion whether to allow public comment.
Go ahead there, Roy.
So as you recall, my daughter and my son-in-law live on the north end of the Morris Meadows subdivision. So it's not immediately adjacent to this section or the work that's proposed, but I guess the concern from my end, and that Derek and Mary could probably address these, but I think in the information that I had looked at, I didn't get into the nitty-gritty details since I'm not the reviewer on this, but we were talking about the downstream restriction. I think you guys may recall from our site visit out there prior to that, this ditch that you see in the wooded area, or the right there, Kent. Yeah. So that had a tile, and the restriction is there. And I believe that's like an 18-inch pipe that comes underneath the fence. As you guys recall, there was a pipe and then a small driveway that the town has on the other side of the fence immediately. And then it opens up to a ditch, which then runs down to these 48-inch pipes much farther south. And yeah, right in around that area is the 48s they're talking about. So I guess my question was that the restriction at the property line is the true restriction? It's an existing condition.
Roy, I knew that was a concern of yours, and I had asked Derek to confirm
Right.
the flow path and whether there was a smaller pipe, and if you want to speak to that.
I didn't see that analysis, or that was part of the analysis, and whether that was sized.
No, so Joe, you may have to zoom in, because I think from everything that we could tell, and I'll be honest, when I went out there in July, August, I mean, the corner's over my head and I couldn't see, very far in front of me. So from the south side of the fence, yeah, so the blue line is the property line, and that there's a chain link fence, I think with razor wire on top, that separates the Sawyer property from the treatment plant. And there's a 12-inch and an 8-inch pipe that outlet into the north end of that ditch where that gravel turnaround area is. And I know when we did our survey, they didn't locate, they located just kind of a hole in the ground right there due north of that.
Okay.
But I mean, it's literally a hole in the ground. I can't say how big, but it was just a little tiny area where that pipe, I don't know if it at some point had been damaged or plugged, or if somebody, excavated it, dug it up. But they located, I think they might have found the 12-inch. But we didn't analyze that as a restriction, given that, it was such a small area that, there's not really a true, ditch coming to it. Everything kind of sheet flows through that farm field.
Right, but that's where I guess the question is, where is the existing outlet that you're utilizing? Because what I saw in the plans is 2 pipes now are proposed in placement of those.
Yes.
30-inch pipes.
2 18-inch pipes.
18-inch
Yeah.
pipes instead of a 12 and an 8. So, and what's being proposed is then work on the town property to then get down to.
No, we're not proposing any work on the town property.
Well, you have to put those 18s in.
Well, I'm sorry. Yes, right there at the outlet, we would have
An
to.
outlet that's large enough to handle the twin 18s.
The upstream end of the ditch, yeah.
It's large enough to handle.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
didn't see that.
6
in the
foot.
Plan, and again, I didn't get into details, but I just saw these, and the issue, I guess, is, from my perspective, that's the board looking at all these facets of the engineer reviewing. But downstream, I believe they also provided an analysis of the overall. And I think you guys saw that. You may or may not have seen that map that shows the analysis. And I put it in the discussion that you had about the 48-inch pipes, right?
Right.
I brought it along, but I guess the conclusion that you had there was that those 48 could handle whatever was coming at them in a 10-year storm.
Yeah, the replacement 48's correct.
The replacement 48.
Because I think right now it's a 48 and a 42 that are in pretty rough condition.
Yeah, and the board did repairs and did work on that ditch. That's why maybe I'm more familiar with that. So I think your conclusion was that those 48s could handle all of the upstream area. Here's what we're talking about. The twin 48s are down around here. Actually,
So there's a 48 and a 42 there now. In our,
On microphone. We're live on Facebook and YouTube.
Okay. A little noisy there coming through.
Well, it's not having information beforehand makes it hard for folks watching at home
Yeah,
to follow, and makes it much more difficult to 4 minutes.
48 and 42 there now. And I think there's a dual 48 called corrugated metal pipes that are staged in the treatment plant area for the replacement.
so perhaps I should have brought this up to Mary prior to this as part of the review. I did not have that opportunity, but I guess the question remains is that downstream system adequate to handle what's being proposed? There are actually, in that ditch itself, there are about 4 other pipes coming in from other portions of the town. And I also know that, the stormwater board is having Westler look at this as a part of the master plan. So there are several other large pipes running into that same ditch. And some of them are 48s, 36s, 48s. So I guess just, the concern then backs up to my family's issues. Is this system going to back up onto them? Ultimately, is my hope that that's not the case.
When you did the analysis of the downstream, the 48, double 48,
Mhm.
you included all area draining to those 2 pipes, right?
Correct. Yeah, it was, we included the entire area, and I don't remember how many acres off the top of my head. I know it was a pretty large watershed. I want to say it may have been 200 or 300 acres, which on the exhibit that Roy provided right there, that was part of our updated drainage report. So we analyzed everything from coming from the Section 1 detention pond and then draining south through that temporary ditch, everything to the west, that I think it's blue, the blue area on that map. Again, that's another future section of Sawyer that would be detained, upon full build out. Also included a pretty sizable portion of the Brandon Ray property, which abuts Sawyer to the north on their frontage along 450 west. And then it included the yellow area, which I think we called downtown Bargersville. So it included all of that area. The one thing that we did not include as a conservative measure was there are 2 detention ponds in Old Town Bargersville. There's I think a dry basin in one of the parks, and then there's a wet pond in, I don't remember the name of the development. Okay, yeah, Parkview. So as a conservative measure, we didn't include any of those and just kind of analyze this thing as if, hey, the only detention upon completion of Section 1 would be the wet pond in Section 1 and then the temporary ditch, that's serving as the outlet. And so when we analyze those in the 10-year storm, under our proposed conditions with the existing pipes, we showed that it does overtop the existing pipes, the existing culverts, I should say, but it's a couple of hundreds. It's like an inch maybe. When those pipes get replaced with the 48-inch that are staged at the treatment plant now, all things being equal, elevation, length, outlet condition, inlet condition, and just changing the pipe size to 248 inches, we showed a pretty considerable reduction in that headwater on the upstream end of those culverts to the point that it wouldn't overtop the driveway in the 10-year storm.
And Roy, I know that you were saying that there's pipes going into that ditch kind of from the neighborhood, and I think that they've accounted for that, was what I was trying to explain too,
Sure.
so.
Yeah. I just know that the sizes, if you look at them in particular, there's a series of those large size pipes that are feeding from the rest of the town. And over, the overall view of saying, here's what the overall drainage is that adequately accounting for how fast that water actually is getting into the system or not? That's certainly up to you guys to be analyzing that. But just knowing the number of pipes that are coming into that ditch.
Do you happen to know how the 48-inch replacement pipes were sized?
I had looked at some numbers back a while for the town, as well as looking at some of the design that was being done by the county highway down on 300, which is really known to be a huge restriction right now. But we were coming up with something a lot larger based on really probably your pre-developed conditions, right? And looking at, so you're in a post-developed condition saying, here, we're holding the water back, and you may have a lot better scenario than we did. Because 248s, I don't know that we tried to run numbers on that as a preliminary for the town. They're just I think ultimately decided they're just going to try and put in what they physically could fit in versus something that was sized appropriately.
So those 248s, so it backs up there, does it just go over the road right there at the 48, or where does it go? If it backs up there?
Well, I think that's what Derek is mentioning, is that for his modeling, at least, to say that it's overtopping a driveway. And, you know, normally the driveway doesn't have a standard like a roadway would have a 100-year storm requirement without overtopping. And a driveway would have a 10-year storm. So his analysis is correct in looking at it from that standpoint.
Yeah, so if it would overtop the driveway there, it would drain south into the north prong of, I think it's Stotts Ditch. It goes south through the treatment plant and crosses under South Street.
Yeah, Joe's
300
pointing
north.
that out. Joe's got a good view of that. I mean, really, the ditch itself through the rest of the site, you guys have been out there, it's not, you can see it's not in the greatest of shape. And it doesn't have real great capacity anyway, but theoretically, the same reasoning we talked about before is our ordinances are in place to what? Detain the water from 100 down to a 10, and that, you know, this development should greatly improve the situation theoretically too. So I'm not arguing against that. I'm just kind of raising the flag and saying, did we look at this the right way?
Joe, can you do me a favor, just back this up a little bit, just pull this down, I just want to see the top of the property where it comes across. So don't we have, keep on, let's see, keep on. Because this ditch comes in from here, goes underneath the road. So we have a little crossover right here, right? Isn't there a small little gravel?
That was the other
That's the other
restriction I was mentioning, right in the north
So
end.
that's the only one I've heard. I know we're replacing these down here. I know we got the issue with.
And I did pose that same question, but it seems like they're not discharging into that culvert. That culvert's maybe serving the west and then discharging in.
I think.
I'm sorry, which culvert?
The one on the north property line.
There's two culverts here, if I remember right. One that comes across from this ditch over here.
And that culvert, the one that you just referred to, crosses south of that little gravel loop in kind of an east-west
Yes.
direction, correct?
From here, but we also got one up here
Right,
as well. There's
Yeah,
another
coming
culvert
underneath.
right here.
coming underneath the fence.
That's right, coming down the fence right here.
And those are the two 18s that are proposed.
Yes.
So in that light, they would have to get approval from the town to construct that,
Yeah.
not from this board.
Yeah,
So
and we
you could probably speak to that a little bit, actually.
I mean, we've been in contact with the sanitation department, so I that would be an item that we would have to coordinate with them for construction, obviously.
Between that and the proposed erosion control on the ditch, town council would have to approve that. They act as the utility board.
And to the point about the existing watersheds, I think, we feel very comfortable that we were conservative in not including the two existing wet detention ponds that are in Old Town in that analysis. And, we calculated, the runoff from the entire, on-site development, off-site developments, existing off-site Old Town or downtown Bargersville. And, the analysis shows that with those replacement pipes, that the capacity is not an issue in the 10-year storm.
I did speak with Brian just to ask about the overtopping of those existings. And he wasn't here in the 08 flood, but of course, well, that's not the 100-year. We have had some considerable storms. He's not aware, not to put words in his mouth, but at least, and I don't know if Rob or Any of those could speak to that, to say that they have or haven't had overtopping, in the current heavy storms that we've had. That could be documented to say that they do or don't, that the 48s, based on their analysis. So I'll shut that.
So having done the analysis, Mary, and then hearing Roy's concerns, do you have a recommendation?
Well, the waiver was for the detention, that they couldn't quite meet the detention. And it's pretty close to meeting the detention with the changes. That we felt like they did the best they could to try to meet the requirement and then to demonstrate that the downstream had capacity. That based on those, that we were comfortable with their analysis. It's a tricky situation because of the way that there's depressional storage now and trying to get a release rate out of that. So based on the site conditions, it was, a challenging design and that the calculations that were presented appeared that they did the best they could to try to meet the requirements.
So are there any conditions, if we are to grant the waiver requests as presented, are there any conditions that we should put in place to kind of protect,
Well, we did ask about shear stress calculations in the stream to demonstrate that, what kind of cover on the ditch would be able to sustain the flows. And they demonstrated that it needed to be either a riprap or some sort of a turf reinforcement. So just to help with the ditch stabilization, that maybe we would ask, if they're going to be discharging more than the detention requirement, to do those downstream improvements to make sure there's not going to be additional erosion. So that might be a condition if you were interested in that. Joe, did you have something?
Yeah, and I had to restart my Adobe here. Give me just a moment. There are some decision criteria outlined for a waiver request such as this. Those are in the staff report. However, I'll go ahead and go through them here. So that modifications will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. Adjacent property will not be adversely affected. The conditions upon which the request for modification is based on are unique to the property for which the modification is sought and are not applicable generally to other property. Because of the particular physical surroundings, shape, or topographical conditions of the specific property involved, a practical difficulty to the owner would result as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the standards are strictly adhered to. And finally, modification will not contradict any provision of the zoning ordinance, comprehensive plan, or official map as interpreted by the Planning Commission and the administrator.
So I guess my question is that on your drawing here,
Mhm.
that you've got, you show a cutaway of the emergency spillway detail coming off the backside. And you're showing 30-foot width across the bottom of it there.
Mhm.
Are you gonna maintain that 30-foot width? Is that the 30 feet all the way down through there?
So the emergency spillway from the pond is up at several feet above the normal pool.
Yes. So I was looking.
And it's-
here.
Yeah, it's 30 feet until basically the upstream end of the, the downstream end of the outlet culvert from the section 1 pond. But then when it gets into the temporary ditch, it's a 10-foot wide trapezoidal channel that fits within that 30-foot easement.
Which thing?
I think I want you to make the motion.
You want me to make the motion on this one there?
And again, for any motions made, they are requesting 2 waivers. One from chapter 1, section C1, which is the design of potential and slash retention facilities. And a waiver from chapter 1, section D, open channels, which is the side slopes greater than 3:1 and longitudinal slope less than 1%.
So what's the best way to control silting for a length of run that long that's gonna be open riprap all the way down? Some kind of a, what's,
Well, it's really going to be acting like a dry pond, like it'll pond
Yes.
and then dry up, right? So, it'll back up like a pond, right?
Right.
So, whatever the design is for those slopes, it could be vegetation, it could be,
Yeah, it would be mulch seeded with erosion control blanket. And then at the outlet for those dual culverts, we would install riprap for standard energy dissipation there at the outlet. And then during construction, we would have to install rock check dams for,
correct.
construction land disturbing activities, which would then be removed once everything's stabilized. And I-
just one other thing about the side slopes, that usually you do a 3-to-1, so it can be easily maintained, right? I think there would be some concern if it was gonna stay wet, like a wet pond, you wouldn't wanna have steep side slopes because it's a safety issue, right? But since it's gonna dry out, it really is more just a maintenance issue of, 2-to-1 is a little steeper for mowing. But if they're gonna be maintaining it as part of their system, then it wouldn't necessarily be the town's responsibility to maintain that over time. So the mowing is kind of on the property owner. So,
All right.
And I can say, during the construction, we require maintenance bonds, 3-year maintenance bonds, performance bonds and such. Given the temporary nature that's being proposed of the waiver, I don't think it would be out of bounds for the board to condition any motion on a time limit. Perhaps within that maintenance bond life.
And I think, so I know they have some contractual agreements in terms of when they have to begin to purchase the next sections of the development. And I think
2 years.
I'll let
Yeah.
Matt Howard with MI explain that a little better.
Yeah, Matt Howard with MI Homes. So yeah, contractually, if I understand right, Jonathan does all the land takedowns. I'm just the development guy, but we've got 2 years from the initial takedown to purchase our next piece. If the economy keeps up like it is, I anticipate this thing going a lot quicker than that to where we would need to take down that piece sooner. So I don't know if you guys would be okay with 3 years from basically the completion of section 1 to get this temporary waiver, I guess, keep it in place for that long. I don't know what the rest, like, would it be under a performance fund or would it be, what kind of trigger would there be if we didn't have it done within that 3 years? What's the penalty,
We would most likely need a separate bond
Mhm.
for the situation.
Just on an agreed upon amount.
Right.
So
And we work with our engineering team to determine what that should be.
Could it be written in a way such that they just have to bring the site into full compliance from the ordinance so that.
Yeah, I was talking with Greg, kind of sidebar, and there was talk, if we had to expand that pond in section 1 to create more storage, if, it wasn't a temporary. So we'd probably have to do some sort of analysis to see how big it would have to be to meet the town's standards.
And actually,
then we could come up with a price from that.
the issue isn't the pond in section 1, it's that area downstream, because there's such a large farm field south of us that for now won't be detained. And it's the only area that contributes to the existing condition. And so until really that pond is built, that detention won't be realized. So that's really kind of as Mary alluded to, the issue is we have a very large congressional storage area in the existing condition where water doesn't go anywhere now. And that just happens to be where we have to do section 1 because that's where our access from 144 is. That's where our water and our sewer, they're really kind of tied to, this is where we've got to go with section 1. And how do we get the water out of there safely and do so in a manner that comes as close as possible to meeting the ordinance.
Which kind of leads to what Joe had presented as far as extenuating circumstances. I would, it's not a normal site. Usually it's not a depressional storage area, or in my experience.
Certainly not one that large.
Sure.
I mean, it's almost 40 acres that just doesn't drain anywhere right now. Right.
So we need a separate motion for each waiver request, or do we say why we come back?
So Joe, what kind of terminology do we need to add to this motion for bond standpoint?
If the board were to choose to make a motion of approval, staff would recommend conditioned on installation of erosion control measures on the existing ditch, as well as bringing the site to meet standards within 3 years of completion of section 1. I would define completion for the record as transfer of ownership. When that plat's recorded. Sure get that.
Typically, it's after, water and sewer.
Okay,
are all
I just had to ask because
Yeah.
everybody's.
Yeah.
You want me to take an attempt?
You want to make an attempt there? Go for it there.
Bear with me here. I move to approve the waiver requests for plat 000341-2021 with the conditions that erosion control measures be made to the existing ditch per the recommendation of our reviewer, and that the site be made to be within compliance within 3 years of the transfer of ownership. If extenuating circumstances present themselves such that the other sections are not close.
See, that is for both waivers, right? 1C1 and then 1D. Broken channels. All right, Joe, we okay with that terminology there?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, I got a motion, I will second that. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes 2-0. All righty. Thank you for the long.
Yeah,
long
it's
round of
another interesting one for us, so.
I think, like I said, this is just an interesting one because that's a huge detention basin right now.
Yeah.
Water just sits there right now, so it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
That's why we have this process, right?
that's why we kind of look at the process and see what we're doing here. We don't have any other meetings tonight, right, up against this one. We're clear to go until whenever we decide to leave.
Hopefully not too long.
Any other new business?
No other new business this evening.
All right. Okay, admin items.
Yeah, first of all, we have some project status. We're still working on our stormwater master plan. I thought we had a meeting set up for that. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Larry, can you give us an update on stormwater master plan?
Yes, so I'm not sure if a meeting's been scheduled yet, but we do have the draft report has been QC'd internally. We're making revisions based on the QC comments. They'll be ready to submit in the next couple days, so sometime this week for sure. 6 project areas have been reviewed with alternatives prepared. So Harmony Hill, South Baldwin Street, 3 Notch Neighborhood, 2 Cent Road, South Old Town, and North Old Town. So then the next step is to review these recommendations with the town, receive feedback, and then incorporate that into the final report. And then aside from the projects, there were other parts of the scope that we were going to look at, some kind of utility management and, things like that. So that'll be part of the discussions in the next coming meeting. So that's where we're on that. And any questions? No.
What you got
I
coming?
knew it was getting close to the size of the invoices.
Yeah.
Yes, we're wrapping it up. One other thing that I was just going to bring to the board's attention, do they know about the audit that's coming up? Okay. Yeah. Oh, did you have that? I'm sorry. Can I give a quick update on that? Okay.
If you didn't know, I did select Bargersville for MS audit on
Okay.
December 8th.
December 8th, and that's full audit, huh?
Yeah, and that's going to be covering your minimum control numbers 4 and 5. That's your construction and your post-construction
Yep.
parts of the program. And that we're doing an audit prep meeting this week to kind of prepare for that and make sure the paperwork's in order before they arrive. So that was the other update that I had from our end. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tim probably always left it, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he's stressed out.
Stressed out, yeah, that's stressed.
Yeah.
Not that.
I had the opportunity to attend the MS4 Alliance conference on Monday last week. And Tim and I both had the opportunity to attend some NDPES certified training Thursday and Friday last week. We both feel much more prepared at this point than we did prior to that training. It was very valuable. So the next item for project status is the 3-notch in Old Trail trench drain. We were able to have a pre-con meeting last week. Contractor should get started on that next week.
Oh, that's good.
Didn't you confirm anything yet?
Not yet. We haven't had confirmation.
Okay.
To get onto the right file, I can get to meeting dates. So 'tis the time of year that we have to look at next year's calendar meeting dates. In the new business staff report, it did outline the meeting dates. I'm proposing to keep those on the fourth Monday of each month, with the exception of the December 2022 meeting. We're proposing to move that to the third Tuesday as the fourth Monday. It falls on December 26th. I had a feeling that no one would like to stay for a meeting on the day after Christmas.
I don't.
Sure. Good, I wish it was. No, that sounds good to me.
Yep. We need a
If
motion.
we could just do a motion to adopt, I don't know if it's required, but I think it'd be cleaner.
I move to approve the meeting date, remain the fourth Monday of each month with exception to December, which would be, you said the third?
Yeah.
The third is gonna get bad. Tuesday?
As presented, I think.
As presented for 2022.
I will second that. Just have a motion and a second there to set next year's meeting dates. Those in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes 2-0.
Last item is treasurer's report and monthly claims. Don't think we had anything that out of the ordinary other than the large invoices coming in for a master plan. Again, we had a little trouble getting those in the printable packet due to the encryption. But those were in the SharePoint.
Ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Okay. I move to approve the claims as presented.
All right, I will second that. You got a motion and a second to approve our monthly claims there. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 2-0. Anything else, Joe?
That is all I had this evening. Again, Tim and I both had the opportunity to attend a NDPES certified training, certified inspector training Thursday and Friday. We found that extremely valuable and learned a whole lot about what we were doing right and what we needed to be doing more.
More out here.
It was a great training. We really thank you guys for the opportunity to be able to do that. Learn a lot more.
No, that's good. I've only got one other thing. Julie called me this morning about some possible projects coming up that would basically have some potential stormwater interest in them. The next community crossroads project that might be coming, as well as looks like it. You just want to talk about that quick, just so John can put up the speed on it there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the next street that we would look to do reconstruct would be West Street. So as you know, there's not stormwater infrastructure on that one yet. So we're starting to look at utility coordination and design on that. So
Essentially construct a temporary
that was a few minutes ago. Starting to look at the initial design on that. So I wanted to let the Stormwater Board know, so we can do coordination early on that project. And then also we're looking at the alley behind Baldwin Street. We need to do some utility work in there. So we're also starting the design work on that project and want to coordinate with stormwater. I don't believe there's stormwater in that location as well. So that'll be an opportunity for us to coordinate all our utilities while we have something open. So we're not cutting the fresh asphalt. It's our newest opportunities for coordination of all utilities when we're doing road projects.
As we move forward, we'll work with Julie and the designer to incorporate what we need and bring that back to the board, obviously, as a design for funding approval.
Like I said, we'll just have to take a look at some of our areas there that we've had some stormwater issues in the past, and see if we can cabbage off of what we're doing here.
Mhm.
Replacing road surface in there. Take advantage of it.
Only got 3 yet left. I just don't.
In that alley there behind Baldwin, is that all the way from 144 all the way down to
Right now, I believe we're looking to Harriman.
just Airman up here? Okay. All right, thanks, Julie.
That's all I had. That's all I had for you this evening.
All right. Move to adjourn. I'll second that. Got a motion and second to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Aye, that motion passes. All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
There you go. That's the last line over there.
Yes, sir.